Hello, so today I am going to give you guys a really short tutorial on carving linoleum. We're doing this because we have a program on April 20th, which you all have probably already tuned into, on Adinkra symbols, which, as you learned, Adinkra comes from Western African countries, specifically Ghana. It's just pretty much represents, symbology and things in life like love and the earth. And so you can do a lot of methods for carving stuff for Adinkra, and our chosen medium's linoleum carving. Linoleum carving is used a lot for screen printing. It's easy enough, but it can be a little difficult and tricky to carve. This is a linoleum block. It is a mounted linoleum block, which means it is linoleum put on this press board here. This makes it easier for you to print it when you're done. It also, in my opinion, makes it easier to carve. Linoleum is pretty much pressed like corkscrew dust with linseed oil. It's the best way I can explain what linoleum is. It's, I guess, a little gummy, but it's pretty hard, so I will show you how we'll deal with that when carving, but it's very important that while you're doing this, you're careful with your tool. Because it is hard, it can be a little harder to carve, and if you're not careful with your tool, you're probably going to slice your hand, and we don't want that. So in your kits, you'll have one of these, which is your linoleum block. I think they're about 3 by 5, I believe, is the size. Another thing you'll have in your kit is this, which mine's a little dirty, but it's a carving tool. Whatever size or shape you get in your pack is just dependent on what we had available. This is my personal favorite one to use because it makes it easier to scoop everything out. So they're very sharp, so be careful with them. And then for this, you're also going to need an eraser, a pencil, and a hairdryer. You're definitely going to need this because this is what we're going to use to make the linoleum easier to carve. And then also, on top of that, you're going to have your cool little pouch that you can print on afterwards. So I'm going to skip a lot of, the more tedious things because I'm not much of an artist, so you don't need to sit here and watch me trying to draw an Adinkra symbol. In your pack, you're going to find a bunch of Adinkra symbols to choose from, as well as the fact that if you were there at our event with Mr. Owusu, you'll have seen some of your symbols you can choose. So this is mine. I already drew it out because it was a nice struggle for me to try to get this on. So I free drew this with my pencil, had to erase it quite a few times, and this is the end result. So right now, if you'll see that this is pretty hard. It's a little difficult to carve. So what I'm going to do is I am going to lightly warm up my linoleum with the hairdryer. When you do this, you do not want your linoleum to be scalding hot to the touch. You want to gently warm it, which means you'll blow hot air on it for maybe a minute at most. So it's just kind of warm to the touch, and I guess cozy and pleasant to the touch, and not exactly hot. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to warm up the spot that I'm going to be carving, because by the time I'm done carving it, if I warm up the whole thing, the rest of it will be cold and hard again. So I'm going to start on this bottom corner. So my bottom right hand corner is just a little warm now, so I'm going to take my tool and obviously the sharp end down. When you do this, make sure you're always carving away from your body. Never carve it towards yourself or towards your hand, because that's how you slip and hurt yourself. So you're going to push down just a little. You don't need to be super hard about this, because if you dig too much, you're going to dig into the wood. You can see on the one I've already done right here, I dug too hard and I scratched the wood out. It's not the end of the world, but it's good to try to avoid it. And so because I've warmed it up, it's a lot easier for me to peel out, and to peel out evenly. Like if I take this part that hasn't been warmed up, it's a lot harder and a lot more uneven to carve. See how when I do it, it just pulls a bunch up at once and flies across the room? That's why we warm up our linoleum. So you're just gonna do it just a little at a time. Patience is the key for this one. It may take you 30 minutes to do this. So what I do when I do my carving is I start in the more empty areas, and because I'm gonna want this design stamped, this is what the pattern I want stamped, I'm gonna carve everything that's around it because this is the part that I want touching the paint. So, and for me that's a little too cold for my liking, and I'm gonna cause the linoleum to fly everywhere. And we're gonna keep carving around, being gentle. And so the part that you really make yourself liable for ruining this, and remember you only have one linoleum tile, so you're going to want to be careful, is when you get closer to the lines, you're going to want to try your best to be steady. I try not to be too perfect in my depth of how my carving at first. I focus on just getting it around the design first, and then as I'm going and as this is finished, I'll carve deeper around the outside so I get a more defined carving. That's why you gotta be careful. So as you can see, we did our basic carving. Really messy looking. It's fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to touch up around it so that this part, the raised part, the design is a bit more defined and less sloppy, because you don't want too much sticking up, because when it comes time to actually making the print with this and you're putting paint on there, you're going to have a bunch of bumps and squiggles up on your print with it. So I'm going to clean it up a bit. I'm going to heat it up a little. as you can see, it's mostly cleaned up. I'm actually just gonna blow a little bit of the flakes off of the hair dryer. And there we go. So I have my carved linoleum block now. As you can see, it's not too raised, which this isn't too much of a worry. And also, as you can see, you're gonna make a huge mess. This is literally only like 1/8 of the mess I made, so make sure you do it on a surface that you're not gonna be mad about doing this on, or your parents aren't gonna be mad about you doing this on. And so the next step, it's gonna be our less than official way of screen printing it. This is the first one I did as an experiment, and as you can see, I painted over the symbol itself. In normal screen printing with linoleum, you'd have like official tools like a little squeegee and paint, and you'd roll it all across the surface. But for our purposes, we're just going to use a paintbrush. So hold on 1 minute while I get all the stuff for that together. So I've given you acrylic paint to do this. Acrylic paint's a bit better for stuff. You don't want to use anything like tempera paint because that's essentially just egg and water and food coloring. It'll come off of any surface. Acrylic paint has a better chance of staying on. If you really want to make sure it stays on the canvas bag, you could buy some fabric paint, but for just ease and price, we have provided you with some acrylic paint. It stays on fabric pretty decently, so not too worried. Something I do recommend is making a test print on a piece of paper. A lot of the times when you utilize these symbols, they can kind of drag on the paper if you're not careful. So you'll have a really splotchy print. But you know, if it's splotchy, it adds to the character, I guess. So I'm just gonna paint over it. I'm gonna be pretty generous in how much paint I put on there. Not too generous, because it's gonna make it all gloopy and spotty like I mentioned before, but enough where there's going to be actual paint to transfer onto the canvas or the paper. You can pretty much put these on any surface that you want, walls if your parents allow you to, paper, really pretty much anything you want. Decorate a journal, you could decorate whatever your heart's desire is. Oh, and you can see a little part where I messed up and gouged my symbol, but it's okay. If you really messed up your linoleum, you know, you slipped and scored a huge piece of it, cut off part of your symbol, you could actually do these on a cut in half potato. It sounds a little wild, but you can carve these into a potato and use that as a print. Potatoes actually make really good stamps in general. So I got this, and we're gonna just take it and we're gonna try our best to put it straight down on the paper. We're not gonna lay one side first over the other, we're just gonna lay it straight down and put equal pressure. And when you pick it up, you're gonna wanna try your best to pick it straight up, because that will help prevent any dragging. And see, we got our symbol. It's not perfect, but it's pretty. And it looks handmade, which is the best part of this. We're not gonna be professional Adinkra symbol makers here, but you'll have something nice and homemade to show off to people. So now, I'm going to try my best to put this on here and not mess it up. So I think I should have enough room. I should have enough room to do almost 3. So I have 2. You guys only get 1 linoleum block, so I'm sorry if I'm maybe rubbing it in your face or showing off a bit right now. But again, potatoes. You can make more designs on potatoes if you want to put multiple on here, or even if you're super clever, if you drew small enough, you could probably fit 2 Adinkra symbols on here. I wouldn't recommend it, only because that would make your carving time way harder. You'd have more room to mess up. If you've never carved linoleum before, even doing the wide turns like on here are going to be difficult. I actually had to redraw this one. The original one was too small for my clumsy self to carve properly. So just keep that in mind. You can do it, but it may be harder. So I imagine with fabric, it's going to bunch and stick a bit more. So I'm going to want to be more careful about how to do this. I'm going to be more careful about making it even. And I chose gold because I chose symbols that represent the earth and essentially treating it nice and praising it. Okay, so as you can see, my stamp didn't have enough paint on it, so I'm going to maybe cheat a little and fill it in. So here's a good lesson for us. Make sure you put enough paint on when you're putting it on the fabric. And I'm not going to try to re-stamp it because I don't think I would land it in the right spot. But for now, this works fine. So I'll keep this in mind when I do the next stamp. And I do not have an easy hand. I shake a lot. If you do this better than me, I certainly encourage you to upload pictures to social media and tag us and rub it in my face. Because sometimes I am not the best with paint, for sure. Luckily, my stamp left a general outline for me to follow, because freehanding this was already difficult in the first place, as I'm sure all of you have discovered. Alright, so that's good enough for me for now, personally. So I'm going to move on to the next one, and this one I'm going to try to put on enough paint where it doesn't get all squelched and gross, but it also, you know, actually transfers the stamp. And it's gold like the sun. Look at this. Okay. I think that's enough. Hopefully you can see how much I have piled down there. So we'll see if this one's enough. If not, yeah, we'll have to try harder. So we're gonna put it down. Try our best to put it down evenly. I have not a clue where this is actually gonna transfer on this canvas, because I am a beginner too. Okay, so I'm gonna better. Except you can see here what I was talking about, how sometimes it squishes out to the side, but it definitely transferred a bit better. I have to put in less work to fill in the spots. But you know what, even if it doesn't come out perfect at the end of the day, when people are going, that's a nice purse you got there, I can tell them I decorated it at the very least. Okay, so there's still, oddly enough, a lot left on here. I really do wonder if fabric paint would work better for this to make it transfer more properly, because I have a lot of paint left over, but not a lot went on the actual fabric. So if anyone tries fabric paint, let me know in the comments and let me know if it works better. Okay, so this is the last one I'm going to try. Try my best to make sure it's somewhat even, though I don't think it's gonna be, but it will add more personality. So, okay, put enough pressure, and we're gonna try to remove it all in one piece. Oh, okay, it looks more like a sun this time. Not as much transferred over, but it looks more like a sun. So I'm gonna fill it in. And Adinkra cloths, traditionally, I believe, were used on like robes and other forms of attire or house decor for people who were of nobility, I guess is the best way to say it, or people of importance or royalty within that Western African region. So I guess your little makeup bag or whatever you want to use this for will be sort of like royalty, right? So that is my totally imperfect and most definitely hand-done Adinkra printed purse. I guess I'll use it for pencils probably, maybe. But yes, so please, if you do yours and it comes out way better, even if it comes out way worse, please, please, please send us photos. I would love to see how everyone's comes out. And like I said, just remember at the end of the day, you put in work for this, and it's fun. Very soothing, in my opinion, carving these. So let me know in the comments if you liked this program, and let me know anything you'd actually want to do in the future, because I imagine we're going to be doing a lot of craft videos into the future with COVID. So thank you for tuning in, and thank you for sitting here watching me carve this. Bye.